A little bit, but is the outside important to indoor air quality?
Yeah.
Yes, the outside is important to indoor air quality. One reason is we can think about the outside of a building as an envelope. In fact, people in the building profession talk about the building envelope, the outside of the building. The walls, the windows, the doors, the roof, and the foundation or the basement or the slab, whatever's on the bottom. And that has an impact on indoor air quality because if the envelope works well, we keep contaminants from the outside reduced from getting inside. And if it doesn't work well, then we have problems. Anybody live in a home or in a building, work in a building that had leaks? You do go to the University of Tulsa, is that correct? You have been in some of the buildings here. Spend some time looking up because they have leaks. You have been in a building that has leaks, and you'll probably be in buildings that have leaks. Envelopes are a system, and sooner or later they will fail in some fashion. That's why you have to maintain buildings and do things like replace the shingles, do things like recaulk the windows, do things like repair cracks in the walls and so forth, because buildings will get them. Buildings have to be maintained, and that envelope, it may start out good, but it eventually will start to fail, and you have to do maintenance work on the building. How the building is sided is important. Anybody see any issues with the siding of the building? Just where it's at, how it sits in the land, and so on.
Well, kind of downhill.
That's right, it is downhill. Well, notice the building actually have the street, and then everything slopes directly towards the building. That's right, water can enter the building. It's rare, but from time to time Oklahoma will get a rain event that'll have more than an inch of rain in an hour. If that happens, this front of the building is susceptible to flooding because you can't carry away the water fast enough. Can it ever flood on a house that's on the tip top of a hill? I mean, actually it can, if it rains fast enough. The water can only run downhill so fast, only a certain amount can run down at any given point in time. If it rains fast enough, it can flood a house that's actually sitting on top of a hill. It slopes all the way down here. You see the entry door down here by the gymnasium. That last building on the end is the gymnasium. And you'll see a slope in the doorway. That's not a particularly good design. If we get a heavy rain, it's likely that water will come in underneath the door. What about the building materials? Any issues with the building materials? It's built, the siding on this building is very common. A lot of the commercial buildings, whether it's retail, hospitals, schools, use this building material. Anybody know what this exterior is on it? Now, the technical name is EIFS, or Exterior Insulated Foam System. It's styrofoam covered with resin, plastic paint. It's really versatile. Because you can do lots of things, you can do these interesting shapes. There's not actually little cornerstones and so forth. That's just all how they cut the styrofoam to make these little shapes, little designs and so forth. And you see it in fast food restaurants, retail stores, and lots of places. EIFS is good for insulation. Styrofoam is a good insulator. That's why we use it for ice chests. And so it's good for energy, but oftentimes that styrofoam is glued straight onto the sheathing of the building. So there'll be a frame of the building and then usually some kind of covering on it, which we call the sheathing. and oftentimes that styrofoam is just glued straight onto the sheathing. I don't know if it's the case for this building or not, but for a long time these buildings had problems because if they ever got moisture behind the sheathing or in the sheathing, that styrofoam does not breathe, and so the moisture would stay there. Anybody have a hospital stay at Southcrest, or I guess it's now Hillcrest South Hospital? It was covered with EIFS, and they removed, and it was built about 2000, 1999, somewhere in there. And about 4 years ago, or a little less than a decade, they removed all of that because they had a big mold problem at the hospital. It was molding back behind the EIFS. And of course, that's not good in a hospital. They replaced it with EIFS. I don't know if they corrected the issue to allow that styrofoam to breathe on the back side. Hopefully they did. Nowadays, if they build it right, they'll provide a little air gap. But if I was doing an investigation on this building and they were having problems, one of the things I would look at, particularly if it was suspected mold, was do we have mold growing between the styrofoam and the sheathing of the building? What about the roof? Does the roof look okay? Yeah, I mean, I think this roof looks pretty good. Sloped roofs are a good design. Obviously, if you slope something, water runs off more efficiently. I don't see any problems with the shingles, but if you were buying a house or renting an apartment, you would want to pay close attention to whether the roof looks like it's in good shape or not. Water is your biggest enemy for indoor air quality in most buildings. And I would want to make sure the roof is good and whether or not it was designed well. No matter how well it's designed, though, we can still run into problems. So we have a large eave that comes out off this building, which helps protect the building from rain runoff. But if you look at the very corner over here, do you see any water damage on that very corner?
Yep.
Yep. So no matter how well designed a building is, you still have to protect that envelope, and part of that protection is maintenance. So at some point, physical plant needs to get up there, work with the materials, perhaps replace some of the damaged material. It may be because there's a leak in the gutter. So you see there's a gutter wrapping all the way around this building. Perhaps they just have a leaking problem there with the gutter. But anyway, they probably need to get up there and start working on that sometime, hopefully in the not too distant future. The windows, they look pretty good. We have these windows here on this patio that could be a problem if we did have a really high rain event because they are down low to the ground. And if you look at campus buildings, oftentimes the windows are pretty close down to the ground. As long as you've got good drainage, that's okay. But I would have worried a little bit about the drainage here on this building for any problems. You see any other source contaminants around the building? What's growing? Shrubs and trees. And they're all pretty close up to the building. We've got some, I don't know if that's crepe myrtle up here against the building directly. We've got a planter that comes here. We've got these trees here. If you look at the entrance, we have a tree just right at the front, shrubs at the doors. So all the pollen that these plants generate, they're pretty close up against the building. What lives in trees and shrubs?
Insects, squirrels.
Yeah, insects, squirrels, mice, rats. Also mold. I mean, this is the natural home for molds. Is on the plants and in the soil and top of the ground, and this is where mold naturally lives. So we've got a lot of sources here, and they're very close to the door. Along the side of the building, it may not be that much of an issue that they're in close up. But as you'll see as we go through the entry door, it's very close in. So every time you open and close the door, you have the ability to drag the contaminants into the building. When you go through doors, sometimes you can feel the wind going, and depending on the pressure of the building, if it has negative pressure, it's going to be pulling air in. And if it's pulling air in, all the pollens, all the dust, all the particles, and everything that's being generated by these plants and the soil and so forth will be dragged into the building. If the building has positive pressure, it'll be pushing out. It may not be that much of an issue. But anyway, those are some of the things that can be going on with the building. So let's go ahead and go on inside. No, just some of it. Okay, all right. Again, as you come down here, imagine if there's a super heavy rain and there's water that's coming down the steps like a waterfall, and then we have the entryway just right here. Okay, you go in there. Doing good. Class, this is Dr. Hollingsworth, and she actually is responsible for the university school and keeps things running. I understand you were teaching this morning. So.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I teach almost every morning. Lots of other times, too.
Right. Well, so we were noting at the very corner of the building that you have some water damage. That's kind of new that you haven't had.
Oh, all right. Miss Bowen, will you write down water damage on, where is it, the front corner?
Right, it's the corner eave, just right at the very point of the gutter.
All right.
Here.
Anything else?
We haven't seen anything else yet.
That's good. That's good.
Guys, make sure you make room for the class coming through. Okay. Well, as we go through here, we're going to talk about a couple of the tools we use. So this is a little smoker tube, and it helps us, it's a non-toxic smoke.